Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Canto 5, Chapter 10, text number 1 and 2. It's a new chapter. It's in prose format, so I'll just read through the Sanskrit. Thereafter you can repeat the word for word with me. Okay, let's try to go through this. Shri Sukha Uvacha. I'll read the Sanskrit, you repeat the word for word after. Okay? So let me just read this part, then I'll tell you when you can read it with me. Shri Sukha Vacha Atho Sindhu Sauvira Pate Rahuganasya Brajate Iksumatisya Tate Tat Kula Patina Sibikha Vahana Vaha Purushanuvasana Samaye Daiveno Asa Ditha Sadvijavara Aphalabdaha Esa Piva Yuva Sambahanan Go Karasvad Duran Vodam Alam iti purva visiti grihitai sa grihita prasabham atad aha uvaha sibikam sa maha anubhavaha. So you can repeat after me. Shri Sukadev Shri Sukha Vacha, which is Sukadeva Goswami said, but here it says Sukadeva Goswami continued to speak. Atha, thus, Sindhu, Sauvira, Pataha, of the ruler of the state known as Sindhu and Sauvira, Rahu Gahanasya, the king known as Rahugana, Vrajata, while going to the ashram of Kapila, Iksu Mataya Tate, on the bank of the river known as Iksumati, Tatkula Pathina, by the leader of the palanquin carriers, Sibika Vaha, to become a carrier of the palanquin, Purusha Anuvasana Samaye, at the time of searching for a man, Daivena, by chance, Upasadita, led near, Sahar, that, Dvija Varaha Jada Bharata, the son of a Brahmana, Upalabdaha, obtained, Esa, this man, Piva, very strong and stout, Yuva, young, Samahana, Anga, having very firm limbs, Gokaraha, Vat, like a cow, or an ass. Dhuram, a load. Vodam, to carry. Alam, able. Iti, thus, thinking. Purva, visiti, grihitai, others who were formerly forced to do the task. Saha, with. Grihita, being taken. Prasabham, beaten by force. Atat, araha, although not fit for carrying the palanquin. Uvaha, carried. Sibikam, the palanquin. Saha, he. Maha anubhavaha, a great soul. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Sukadev Goswami continued, my dear king, who is he talking to? My dear king? Maharaj Parikshit, right, Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, after this King Rahugana, ruler of the state known as Sindhu and Sovira, was going to Kapila Ashram. Where was he going? Kapila Ashram. When the king's chief palanquin carriers reached the banks of the river Ikshumati, they needed another carrier. Therefore, they began searching for someone, and by chance they came upon Jada Bharata. They considered the fact that Jada Bharata was very young and strong and had firm limbs like cows and asses. He was quite fit to carry loads. Thinking in this way, although the great soul Jada Bharata was unfit for such work, they nonetheless unhesitatingly forced him to carry the palanquin. So we'll do text 2 also. I'll just read the translation because it's a big verse. Text 2. The palanquin, however, was very erratically carried by Jada Bharata due to the sense of non-violence. As he stepped forward, he checked before him every 3 feet to see whether he was about to step on ants. Consequently, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. Due to this, the palanquin was shaking, and King Rahugana immediately asked the carriers, "Why are you carrying this palanquin unevenly? Better carry it properly." He would have said something like that. Very angry, he was angry. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although Jada Bharata was forced to carry the palanquin, he did not give up his sympathetic feelings towards the poor ants passing on the road. A devotee of the Lord does not forget his devotional service and other favorable activities, even when he is in a most distressful condition. Jada Bharata was a qualified Brahmana, a highly elevated in spiritual knowledge. Yet he was forced to carry the palanquin. He did not mind this, but while walking on the road, he could not forget his duty to avoid killing even an ant. A Vaishnava is never envious or unnecessarily violent. There were many ants on the path, but Jada Bharata took care by looking ahead 3 feet. When the ants were no longer in his way, he would place his foot on the ground. A Vaishnava is always very kind at heart, to always give and to all living entities. In his Sankhya Yoga, Lord Kapila Dev explains Surita Sarvadehanam, Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21. Living entities assume different bodily forms. Those who are not Vaishnavas consider only human society worthy of their sympathy. But Krishna claims to be the Supreme Father of all life forms. Consequently, the Vaishnava takes care not to annihilate untimely or unnecessarily any life form. All living entities have to fulfill a certain duration for being encaged in a particular type of material body. They have to finish the duration allotted to a particular body before being promoted or evolved to another body. Killing an animal or any other living being simply places an impediment in the way of his completing his term of imprisonment in a certain body. One should therefore not kill bodies for one's sense gratification, for this will implicate one in sinful activity. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swabadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanamuscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanamuscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Desatarine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before we start, I would like to ask the blessings of all the devotees seated so that we can speak something on the Srimad Bhagavatam. This story of Jad Bharat is one of the most decisive leelas in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not carried for 1 or 2 chapters. This story goes on for 8 chapters. We first hear about Jad Bharat as the eldest son of Rishabdev. Then we hear of his dilemma and how he became a victim of compassion. And due to being a victim of compassion, he became overpowered by the illusionary energy to become attached to a deer. And he learnt his lesson the hard way. And when he took his next birth, in the post-mortem phase of his spiritual journey, he then took birth as a deer. And in that phase of a deer, he was not an ordinary deer, a very spiritual deer. And he lived in a holy place, Pulaha Ashram. And when that body came to its end, in that post-mortem phase, then he took birth as this personality we're hearing about today, Jada Bharata. So it shows what lengths a devotee would go through, what he has to endure, what he has to endeavor, and how he has to be careful on the path of devotional service. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's a rough road. There may be ants on the road that we may have to avoid. But as we see, Jad Bharata, 8 chapters of this canto, we're going to hear about him. So we are not finished with his story. Now he's in the phase of instructing in this chapter. What is he instructing? He's going to share his knowledge of what he's learned the hard way, so that others don't make the same mistake. This is real compassion. This is real compassion. Actually, his karmic cycle had finished in the form of the deer. He didn't have to take this birth. Right? We know, we've heard from Prabhupada that those animals that are born here in the Dham, that this is their last birth. So after this they're going to go back to Godhead. And Pulaha Ashram is a holy place. So we can induce that this is the same kind of situation. So why did he take a third birth as Jada Bharata? This is compassion. This is the mood of the Mahabhagavat devotee. And this is the theme of what we're going to discuss in this chapter and through the text today. So it's a very privileged situation here, that Krishna has kindly given us the example of his great devotee to show these 2 types of Bhagavatas, the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both are corollaries that go hand in hand to guide us on the path of bhakti. If we only take the book Bhagavat, we won't have an example of bhakti. It'll all be philosophy or theosophy. Theosophy is a study of God, but where you only know about him. Theology is the study of God in practical application. It's a big difference. So we can only learn that if we see the Mahabhagavata in action. Now we may say, well, Prabhu, where is he right now today? So we're coming to that point. Keep it in mind. So Bhagavatam is not an ordinary text. It offers deep thinking that leads to deep observation of this material world. It forces you to think deeply about your situation. Because at the end of the day, it is the essence of the Vedanta Sutra. So it is offering the deepest aspect of spirituality ever known to man. And if one is serious about this, he can apply this in his life and transcend this word. So although we're hearing this story, one may say, oh well, it's just a Leela. But don't misunderstand. Because a pastime, especially from the Bhagavatam, when we hear pastimes, there's a simple aphorism to catch this point. That a story is divided into 4 parts. It's P-A-S-S. What is it? P-A-S-S. Pass. P for philosophy, A for application, S for similarities or analogies, and S for story. So just reading the Bhagavatam on one level is catching the story. Deeper than that is the philosophy. P, where you get the philosophy of the Bhagavatam. It gives you more insight. Deeper than that is trying to draw analogies and similarities to your own life. And the deepest aspect of the Bhagavatam is application. If it is not applied, it is just theosophy. It is just you hearing about Krishna. It won't change the heart. So we heard about his struggles. Jai Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, Krishna Balaram, Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So we heard about his struggles. Now what is so interesting about this story is that the same energy that bewildered him and confused him in his form as Maharaj Bharata, the same energy came to save him in the previous story. In Maharaj Bharata, the illusionary energy came as compassion to confuse him. And that same energy in the previous Leela, in the previous story, came as who? Came as Kali. They're very devastating, I'm sure. Don't be scared, it's only a photo. But you can see, even as a picture of her, she's very, very frightening. You can see her teeth, her mouth, her attire. She's dressed in her material attire with arms and heads, and she's garlanded with all very frightening bodily features. So it's very interesting that that same energy that bewildered him came to save him in the form when he was in trouble. Now if we consider this, just to take the story a bit out of the Bhagavatam, how is this practically related to the material world right now? Do you get stories like this actually happening? Well, you'll be surprised that in the West, it comes under the form of what is called Satanism. And it's a similar style of tantric worship where human beings are being slaughtered, are being offered in this mood. So this is an actual diagram of the, if you're too far away, you can come a little closer so maybe you can see. This is an actual diagram of a sacrificial area of satanic worship or this kind of worship. And you can see the person is put over a seat like this. Somebody holds the leg, somebody holds the hand, and this person has a big knife in his hand. And one of the forms is to behead the person, take the head off. In another form, this is an actual photograph of one being done. You can see the man there. He's holding a kind of a dagger knife in his hand, and he's holding it up above his head. And you can see a young girl she's laying down here. And she looks actually very much like a Western girl. So this is also a warning that in Vrindavan, I've heard at least 2 stories of something like this that happened in Vrindavan. So we'd like to also warn the devotees, don't go out anywhere alone. Be very careful of this. They are not all devotees here in the Dham. So you can see this person has a dagger, and in this particular worship, it's not beheading, but it's removing the heart of the person. The dagger is poked into the chest cavity is opened, and the heart is removed out of the body. Not a very nice thing to see or hear about, but this is basically to give you a practical example that these things are happening around. This is an article that says here, killing of children offered to Mother Kali. So it's a very contemporary thing. It's happening in the world. Let's see another one here. Another one here says, Indian man brutally murders 8-month-old baby to offer to goddess Kali. So it's happening in modern lifestyle. It's not something that only happened in Mahabharata, in Bhagavatam or Jadbara. There's one more here. Indian cult kills children for goddess pleasure. So it's a reality of life that not everybody is following the sattvic or the divine path. So be careful out there. So like we said, the same energy came to save him, which is very interesting that for the devotees, Krishna's energy also wants to serve the devotees. We'll see at the end of this pastime, Maharaj Rahugana also mentions that we won't want to commit sinful activity for the fear of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva was also feared of giving heavy reactions. So let's see what Prabhupada put in the translation and purport. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, after the king Rahugana ruled the states known as Sindhu and Sovira, was going to Kapila Ashram." Now where is Kapila Ashram and where is this Sindhu place? Now if we just geographically try to figure out, the Sindhu is near the Sindhu river, which is now called the Indus river. and Kapila Ashram is known, which is near Calcutta. So the distance is 1,249 miles. So you want to carry somebody in a palanquin, that distance? It is very, very far. Very, very far. Unfortunately, there was no auto rickshaws at that time. Right? So Rahugana Maharaj was going on this sojourn, this excursion, to a holy place, Kapila Ashram. But what he didn't realize, that he was going on an outer journey, which is an external journey, a pilgrimage. But he didn't know he's going to meet someone that will take him on an inner journey. The inner journey of understanding bhakti, devotion to Krishna. So Guru comes in different forms. It's not something external, because he never predicted or thought that this person, Jadabharata, would be an instructing Guru to him. He didn't look like it. So one of the reasons why Jadabharata gave mercy to this king was because he was also a king at one time, as Bharat Maharaj. So he knows how powerful the illusionary energy can be. And because he had mercy on this king, he could instruct him from the same level. So if you are instructing or sharing with somebody like this, it's nice if you have the personal experience of it. If you don't, no problem. The Bhagavatam gives all experiences of life. And that can also elucidate the person's difficulty. Prabhupada then goes on. When the king's chief palanquin carriers reached the banks of the river, Iksumati, they needed another carrier. Therefore, they began searching for someone, and by chance, they came upon Jadabharata. By chance means what? There was no providence involved. This is materialistic kind of conceptions, and you can see by the activity, we will hear now, how they unhesitatingly caught him. Oh, yeah, come, we need you. Not considering who this person is. So you can see immediately this material relativism kind of consciousness. So they considered the fact that Jad Bharat was a very young and strong and had very firm limbs. So just looking externally, they said, hey, this guy is qualified. We can take him. And he was as strong as an animal, like a cow or an ass. And he was quite fit to carry these load, because it's a heavy load. To carry a palanquin is not an easy thing. You can see you can look at the leg muscles on these guys and look at the hands. How many of you have been to Yamunotri? If you've been to Yamunotri, you'll know that if you can't walk all the way up, you can take a palanquin. And I was so shocked to see that these guys actually run with you. They don't walk, they run with you. It's about 6 kilometers to the top. So you can see it's quite strong men. Actually, there's 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And usually if it's a regal monarchy kind of person, there's 1 on either side, just for like conversation or, as a guard. So it takes a lot of hard work. You need a strong person. So thinking in that way, although the great soul Jadabharata was unfit for such work. Why was he unfit? Because he's a great devotee. How can you just make a great devotee just to carry somebody like this? They nonetheless unhesitatingly, they didn't even hesitate. This is material kind of consciousness. And they forced him against his own will. They forced him to carry the palanquin. So it's not if you see this picture here, you can see the example of, this is from the Bhagavatam, this picture. This is Jad Bharata here. And you can see he's really walking in a funny way. And of course the king is going to be angry because he's trying to like jump around. And the king is saying, hey, what's going on there? So this is one. This is a little better close-up one. You can see it better here. You can see he's really like watching down and jumping all over the place. And it's definitely not going to be a smooth ride. So this palanquin carried. This, by incidentally, is the palanquin of the king of Jaipur. It's gold-plated and very ornate. So it's usually regal people, very aristocratic people travel in palanquins. It's not so popular today. We have auto rickshaws today. So it's not so popular. So, but in the olden days, this was the standard of great respectable people. So Prabhupada goes on in the second translation, the second verse. The palanquin, however, was very erratically carried by Jad Bharat due to his sense of non-violence. He didn't want to step on the ants. He was very cautious. We see this story was also same subject, stepping on the ants, was there with Narada Muni's disciple. What is his name? Mrigarari, the hunter. Same principle. When they reach this high level of spirituality, even an ant becomes significant to them. So Prabhupada goes on in the purport. As he stepped forward, he checked before him every 3 feet. How far is 3 feet? 3 feet is 1 meter. So every meter in front of him, he was looking. He was analyzing, is there any ants? Is there anything that I could possibly step on? I don't want to hurt anything. So he was checking 3 feet in front of him to see whether he was about to step on an ant. So was he becoming ant conscious? Or was he actually a very highly conscious being? If we judge externally, it looks like the same thing is happening on a different principle, same principle, different detail with the deer. Now, is he becoming ant conscious? No. He's highly evolved. He's learned his lesson. So when you judge a Mahabhagavat, don't ever make the mistake of doing it externally. This is the theme. This is the lesson. Prabhupada goes on. Consequently, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. Why? Because he's jumping all over the place. Due to this, the palanquin was shaking, and the king immediately asked the carriers, "Why are you carrying this palanquin unevenly? Better carry it properly." He was becoming angry now. What is this? I'm trying to meditate on my destination. I'm trying to go on a journey. And who is this person who's just like moving this palanquin all over the place? Prabhupada then starts the purport. Although Jad Bharata was forced to carry the palanquin, he did not give up his sympathetic feelings towards the poor ants passing on the road. So even an ant for a Mahabhagavat is significant. He is not seeing the body. He is seeing that there's a desperate soul in that body that has forgotten Krishna. In that desperation, this soul is moving all over the place, trying to search for where he can find pleasure, where he can find, actually in its ultimate sense, where he can find Krishna. And he's feeling that compassion, he's feeling that urgency of that soul. And therefore he feels, how foolish should it be of me to step on the soul without any reason, stopping the soul's chance of making advancement or progression in its gradual spiritual evolution. Prabhupada goes on. A devotee of the Lord does not forget his devotional service. He never forgets his service and other favorable activities, even when he is in the most distressful condition. Is that a fact? Well, this is what we praying to come up to, that in distress not to forget Krishna. That's our fear. That's our greatest fear, that at the time of death, that's why we have a certain attire, that's why we're doing our sadhana, that's why we're trying to live in the dham. We're maximizing our spiritual opportunities, so that at that time when death comes, when we have to leave the body, we don't make that mistake. So the Uttama Adhikari or the Mahabhagavat comes down from the Madhyam, from the Uttam level, down to the Madhyam level to preach. Otherwise, he has no business on the Madhyam level. He's absorbed in Krishna's consciousness. He's absorbed in the absolute truth. And his consciousness is simultaneously one with Krishna's. Therefore, he absorbs, he knows how to serve Krishna. He knows how to please Krishna. And being absorbed on that level, he has no interest on a lower level. So why does he come lower? Well, he comes down to preach, try to help. And this is an interesting phenomena because it came up in the Bhagavad Gita also. In the Gita, Arjuna also was heard about this in the 2nd chapter, in text 54. Stita pragya kabashasa samadhistasya keshava stita dhir kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta kim. How does this person walk? He's such an elevated person. How does he move? Vrajeta, we heard of Vrajeta in today's verse also. How does he move and go places? How does he sit? What is his consciousness like? Arjuna was also asking about such a personality. So if we try to relate this and make it pragmatic, something relative to our own spiritual path, then the only person that we can really relate to as a person who's achieved this is Srila Prabhupada. Especially, we won't go wrong with that. So what is the vision of the Uttama Adhikari, the Mahabhagavat? The eye is not only used for seeing, it also, we have to open the inner eye, the spiritual eye. So if you use the external eye to see, you will not see the Mahabhagavat. Actually, you will offend the Mahabhagavat. And that's, we learned from Maharaj's class yesterday, what is the result of offending devotees? Great reaction. So we don't want to make that mistake. But if we look at, this is a picture of Srila Prabhupada just about to cross the road. And you can see him observing, you can see the buildings around him. And if you think in your heart, in your mind, what is he seeing? What is he actually seeing? Prabhupada was at an airport once, and the devotee was sitting and chanting, and he was asked, one devotee asked him, Prabhupada, when you see all these passengers, these people, what do you see? And Prabhupada said, I see flapping bodies. Flapping bodies. This is the vision of the Uttama Adhikari. He's not seeing anything material. And this famous picture of Srila Prabhupada, I think from the Abhay Charan series. Even one of the first books I read was The Science of Self-Realization. And I was really intrigued. What is this sadhu looking at? What is he seeing? You know, when you're innocent at that time, you say, oh, maybe he's seeing Krishna, you know. And now, over the years, when you learn, what is the vision? And we're going to hear this. What is the vision of the Uttama Adhikari? So we don't make that mistake. So what is Prabhupada seeing here? Look at his gaze. Look at the focal length of his eyes. It's not looking at anything material. He's definitely perceiving a higher level of spirituality, of reality. So we want to learn what is the vision of the Mahabhagavat. So as we're developing, we don't make the same mistake of offending, as well as how we can see this. Now, this is good theology, but let's take it a little scientific, okay? Can we actually, is such a phenomena possible that one can perceive such a level of subtle energy, like the gaze of a great Mahabhagavat? One may say, oh well, you're following that tradition, therefore you're accepting it. Can such a thing be true? That you can perceive a lower level of vision, a much more subtle level of vision. There's a great scientist from Russia. I forget his name right now, but it's a new study. He's created a field of study called biophoton emissions. Biology, bio comes from biology, which means life, and photon comes from, what is photon? Any scientific people? Photon comes from light. So biophoton that the body actually emanates a certain frequency of light. And if you see this, he's done an experiment here. This is a hand, and by using, let's use this machine first. This is the machine he created to do this. It's called the biophoton emitter. And by connecting this to the body, just like we know the subtle body emanates the aura, the auric field of the body. But that's just like in a photo, in a photograph, right? It can only be perceived like through a photograph. But this science is showing in video format that, why am I mixing this? Okay, there we go. In video format, that if you put your hand under this sensor, it creates a photo residue around your hand, just like an auric field. But you can take that deeper, just like on the right here is, on the left is a hand, on the right is a picture of the hand without the hand there. It's a photo residue of the hand. You can see it clearer here. This is the body. This is a subtle picture of the body. You can see it's on a different wavelength frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, then ultraviolet frequencies, the different frequencies of light that they're using. And you can see here, it changes into more subtle. Of course, they cannot perceive the soul. But what they've discovered, they're perceiving the residue of the subtle entity. Not the soul, it cannot be perceived, of course. But the residue of the subtle entity. Here's another one here. There's the hand. Let me show you this. Here's the hand. Here's, using that machine, you can see the picture of the hand using photons, light emissions. And here also. So the point of all this, I don't want to get too technical, but the point of all this, that even science shows that below the surface of the body, there's a subtle nature. Below that subtle nature, there's a deep spiritual nature also. They're coming to realize this. So if that deep spiritual level is there, can it be perceived? Maybe some of it can be perceived through instruments like this, but can you actually perceive and live and exist on that level? Because we know we can exist on a subtle level also. That has been proven. We relate to the mind and intelligence and false ego. We can exist on that level. But on this level, like the Mahabhagavat's vision, it can be possible. It's a possibility. As a theory, it's a possibility. That shows that the Mahabhagavat's vision is actually a reality, but we're not perceiving it right now. So what is the qualification to perceive that level of finite consciousness? It takes deep spiritual practice, and of course, full mercy of the Lord. So just to bring it into a little bit of perspective there. So there are two kinds of liberated souls. One we're hearing about here in this story. One kind of liberated soul is called the Videha Mukta, and the other one is called the Jivan Mukta. So the Videha Mukta, Videha, without Deha, without body. So this kind of liberated soul perfects his life and then goes back to Godhead. The second one is what we're hearing about in this story, the Jivan Mukta. That particular soul is perfected but still resides within this world. And by residing here, he's giving his realization of the absolute truth to the living entities. So it's a very magnanimous personality.